Soxcast Internet listening people. Back for another special episode of the Soxcast today because I am joined by someone who, if you've watched basically anything on the internet, if you're a fan of dubbed anime or you play a lot of localized games, you've probably heard her a lot. I'm joined by the lovely and talented and fellow David Bowie fan, Kira Buckland.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm awake. That's what I usually tell people anyway. How's things over there? Good old California. Everybody loves it, right?
Well, we've actually been getting a ton of rain. I don't know if you heard about it, but there was a big storm in Southern California a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm. But you guys needed some rain though, didn't you? Weren't you under a big drought?
Yeah, we were, but it's been raining almost nonstop this winter.
Oh, well, I guess too much rain can also pose a few problems. Like I said, I mentioned that you were a fellow David Bowie fan. I guess you gotta be happy that kind of swept the Grammys with Black Star.
Yeah, I am very happy.
Absolutely deserved.
Especially because I saw some really awful articles going around talking about how, people were saying, oh, well, Justin Bieber deserves it more than him. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Are you guys crazy?
How many drugs does one have to be on to say something like that? Oh my god, Black Star is just an amazing artistic accomplishment, even taking away who's the person that created it. It absolutely deserved everything that it got.
Yeah.
And hey, why not, a little plug up front? Why don't we talk a couple of minutes about the Voice Acting Club? Because that's another thing that you're involved heavily with that kind of recently, I guess, got started over again.
Yeah.
What is the Voice Acting Club, and how can our listeners, get in there and interact and get stuff done for their projects?
So, it's basically a voice acting forum, and there are some resources for people who are looking to get started in online voice acting for, online projects, indie games, YouTube videos, stuff like that, machinima, those sort of things. And it also serves as a method of connecting the content creators with people who can voice act for their projects. And so we offer, it can be either paid or unpaid. So, obviously, if you post a paid casting call, you might get people who are a bit more experienced or, maybe a little bit better quality setups or this or that. But if you're kind of you're just starting out, you can't pay people, but you want voices for your project, or you're doing a school project or something, you can find a bunch of people who are aspiring voice actors, and they'll send you auditions. So it's kind of at least my goal is sort of to foster that mutually beneficial relationship where, whether it's a trade for credit sort of thing, or it's an actual hiring people, kind of finding this place, because I feel a lot of people say they're making an indie game or this or that. They just don't really know where to go to find voice actors. Maybe they'll post something on Tumblr and hope people see it, or on their Kickstarter blog. But it's voice actors, unless they're constantly just looking out for these casting calls from all these different sources, it's I just kind of want there to be a central place, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's really cool, and it seems it's this great bridge between talent and people that need that talent, but also kind of a nice gap, bridging the gap between people that are currently doing this professionally as well as people that are trying to get a foot in the door as well, and to sort of create new connections, network a little bit, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really cool thing. You also started an anime convention?
Yeah, way back in the day.
Organizing things with people, especially when people are involved, that's kind of a pain. How did you manage that and not go completely insane?
Well, it was really small when it first started. I was actually in high school in my senior year, and I had never been to an anime convention, but I'd heard about them on the internet and was like, this sounds really cool. They have a costume contest. They have, these sort of things. So we just kind of held it in our high school that year, but then later it grew and this and that. And obviously other people run it now because I don't live there anymore, but it's actually in a big convention center now and stuff.
Wow, that's as a high schooler, you put something like that together. Wow. That's kind of incredible. So kind of like the meat and potatoes I kind of wanted to cover of this interview is obviously your voice acting career is kind of like impressive. Like I imagine at this point that you kind of carry around your resume in one of those little little U-Haul trucks and just be like, and just dump it off in front of a studio and be like, yo dog, I got you. And I think that it's an inspiring kind of journey that you've taken. You've really dedicated yourself to a craft. And like, those are the kinds of stories I kind of like hearing told. And because I think that those kind of things can help inspire other people. So,
oh my gosh, I wish it was that easy. I wish you could just, send your stuff over.
Just be like, there it is. So with that in mind, like everybody's got a something that made them sort of like pursue their dream, like whatever it may be like voice acting, art, music, and like what is the thing where that kind of struck the nerve with you to finally say, that's what I got to be doing?
It was sort of when I really got into like anime and video games and stuff like that, because I didn't really get to watch or play a lot of that stuff when I was younger. So it wasn't until I was a teenager that I sort of realized that was a thing and that was something I wanted to do, because, you know, I would hear the voices and stuff. I would hear people voice acting in these projects. And when I kind of realized that was actually a career that people have, it was something that I really wanted to do.
That's really awesome. And so you kind of got your start in voice acting back when kind of media on the internet was in its infancy, in a way, because I think like Newgrounds was kind of like the big thing at that point.
Yeah, and I feel really lucky because, you know, nowadays like there's YouTube and stuff is a huge thing, and it's just overrun with so many people who are like aspiring voice actors and stuff, which is great. Like, it's great that, you know, it's getting a lot more visibility and so many people want to do it. But at the same time, I feel like it's really hard these days if you're like up and coming and trying to do stuff online, because basically you kind of have to be like YouTube famous or like a YouTube personality, I feel like, to sort of, if you want people to notice your stuff. And, you know, that's part of the reason too that I wanted to make this forum, so that everyone has a chance. It's not like, you know, you have to hope that you do some viral video or something to get your voice work noticed. It's like these open projects on here, anyone can submit. But yeah, like I consider myself pretty lucky, because back when Newgrounds and this and that were big things, a lot of people didn't really have resources for voice actors, especially for females, because they're just like, I don't know if the ratio on that site, it was probably like 75 male, 25% female overall. So there were like a lot less women, and the ones that there were like overrun with requests and stuff. So a lot of times if they had like a girl voice, they'd just do like all the guy voices themselves, or they'd have like the Microsoft Sam voice or whatever.
Oh no.
And then for the girls, yeah, they would either still have the Microsoft Sam voice, but the lady one, Microsoft Mary or whatever.
Oh gosh.
Or they would make like their sister, mom, or girlfriend do it, or they would like just pitch up their own voice. So I felt like, you know, even though I wasn't that good when I first started, because, I mean, most people aren't good when they start at anything for the first time, I felt like just the fact that, like, hey, like, I'm an actual girl that can do voices and stuff, I feel like that gave me a big leg up.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, how, like, I know that you said that, you know, like, kind of like being a female, you kind of like made you a bit of a hot commodity there. Like, how difficult back then was it to actually, like, get lines to people or organize projects? Because, again, when you involve a thing that involves people can be a problem.
Well, I feel like in terms of technology and stuff, a lot of it has stayed fairly consistent since then. Like, you know, I've been using Audacity forever to record because it's super simple, and you can just export, usually it's like MP3s, sometimes for like big, more prestigious projects now they're like, no, send it in WAV, but I mean, you can do either or. And how it's always been was like, you record the lines, you export the MP3s, and you email them to whoever's producing the project. So like sometimes you zip them up if there's a lot of them or whatever. I mean, now I guess the main difference is sometimes for huge files, you see more use of like Dropbox, Google Drive, Mediafire, that sort of thing. But yeah, I feel like it was always pretty much the same process. I mean, maybe now you see a few more people who want to direct over Skype and this and that. Yeah, it's
cool. Do you remember your first role?
Well, the issue was that it was a lot of the stuff that because when I first started, I would audition for literally anything and everything that I could find, because there were other forums, like even back before the VAC, there was the VAA and stuff, because the VAC, the original incarnation of it, originally came from Newgrounds.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because I had started like a thread on there for people to find voice actors, but because it was just a single thread, it was like so difficult and confused, and there's like drama and everything, so just having like a forum where people could make a thread for their projects and then voice actors could post their demos in a certain place, it just made it a lot easier. But yeah, like there were other forums still, so I would audition on the VAA and stuff like that, and a lot of the projects, because everything was just for free back then, it was like none of the projects were paid and stuff. Now you're starting to see some stuff online pay, which is really cool, but definitely not when I was first starting out back then. And so a lot of times life would get in the way for people, and they're just like, I can't finish this, and they would just disappear. So you'd record, and it's the worst if you recorded like 50 to 100 lines for a project, which is a lot back then, especially if you're like doing it for free on your spare time, and then they're like, haha,
yay, bye. Goodbye, all that.
Yeah, because you have no I mean, now, like, at least in the actual industry and stuff, if you record for a project, even if for some reason it doesn't happen, it's like you still get paid for your time.
Yeah.
But when you're just working with literally everything as volunteer, from the people producing it to the people voice acting in it, it's like there's no real accountability. And it was the same thing because I produced projects as well. And it was the same thing on the producer side, because voice actors could just drop off the face of the earth and not send you lines. And you're like, hey, you were in the previous one and I really want my cast to be consistent. So
yeah, I had that happen to a friend of mine. He did a movie and then a game, and it was just like, I need consistency. Where did they go?
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord. That sounds like, again, it's a people thing, I suppose. So,
yeah, I feel like nothing, no matter like how good things get in terms of organization, nothing's gonna the human factor is always gonna be there.
Yeah, like for good or bad, I suppose. So I think I first remember hearing you, like when you started making a move toward professional work. It was Luminous Arc, I believe, and the redub of 5 centimeters per second. Did you start working?
Those were some of my first.
Yeah, like, did you start working professionally before those two? Because those are the first two that I remember hearing you in a professional capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I did a couple other things. I did one DS game called Away Shuffle Dungeon, which like nobody played, but I bought it because I was happy.
Yeah, obviously. So, like, speaking to the professional side of things, for people like me who don't voice act because my voice is a basement fire, what is it like to go in and audition for something like this? And I know that it's not the same for every project. It can't be, because people, whoever's doing projects handle this stuff differently. But, like, what is an audition like? What do you do?
Well, most of the auditions nowadays are done from home.
For real?
Yeah. Like, you still go in and record physically if you get the part. But a lot of times, I mean, it used to be more auditions in person. I noticed, like, back when I first started doing professional work, like for those projects you mentioned, I would go and audition in person. Mm-hmm. But, when you have a bunch of actors coming in to read on something, it's difficult trying to schedule everyone. And in the LA area, people live all over the place. So people who have like an hour commute, they're not going to want to drive for a 10, 15-minute audition that they might not even make. Mm-hmm. And since everyone's like, busy and booked at different places, and, you know, then they have to pay people to, like, be in studio recording the auditions and stuff like that, you know, like the engineers and the directors and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I feel like they can just eliminate a lot of that hassle by recording from home, and that's probably why they do it, because most people have some kind of setup, and it doesn't have to be, you know, obviously, since you're going in to record, if you get the part, they're not really evaluating you on your quality. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect, but they just want to hear how you act and how you sound as that character.
So let's say, like, okay, like, you've been in a lot of roles that I've really enjoyed, so let's pluck one from the ether. Marvelous AQL from Neptunia, let's say. Okay, like, do you specifically read for that character, or is it just, give me, like, a tough chick kind of voice, and, like, or something along those lines, or do you specifically go in and say, I want to read for this character?
Well, it depends. Like, I know different places do it differently. For that specific character, they just cast me as her, because they had, like, a lot of my voice samples and stuff on file, and they were just like, we want to bring you in to play this character. So that's always really cool when that happens, because it's like a, you know, it's like a present that you're not expecting.
That's gotta be real flattering, I would say.
Yeah. But normally, when you do auditions, you are reading for specific characters. But what happens sometimes, and whether or not you get to pick who you read for really depends on the studio, because I know, like, at one place that I work a lot with, or actually at a couple different places, you don't get to choose. They're like, okay, these are the ones that we think that you'd actually have a shot at booking, and you get to read for those 2 or 3. But some other places, maybe they'll send out an email with all of the characters, and they'll say, you pick the 2 or 3 that you think you're best suited for. So, I mean, it kind of depends, because sometimes the characters that they've picked for me to audition, it's like, oh, I would have not cast myself as that character, but then I booked it. So it's kind of like, oh, that's cool. But then sometimes I'm also feel like, wait, but I know I could have done a good read for that character, but I didn't get to read. So, I mean, there's upsides and downsides to both. But yeah, the other thing that can happen too is you go in and you read for specific characters. Like, maybe you'll read for all the main characters. And if you don't get cast as any of those, but they can tell from your audition, oh, you'd be good as the side character, then that's how they cast a lot of those. Because, I mean, obviously, if you're casting for a game that has like 50 characters and some of them are really minor, you're not going to hold auditions for all those characters in most cases. But when people audition for the mains, you're like, okay, I like their voice, but someone beat them out for this character, so I'll put them in this smaller role or whatever. So that's happened a lot too. Cool.
So, like, what's the situation like, I guess I don't need specific numbers, but, like, pay-wise, if you get cast in multiple roles in the same game or the same anime or something, like, what happens then? Like, how is that figured out? Like, do you still just get paid for one role, or is it, like, kind of, like, bumped up a bit because you're putting in the extra work, obviously?
You get paid by the hour, not the role.
Oh, really?
So, I mean, unless you're doing something where you record the entire project from home, like if you're working on an indie game or something, because obviously, like, then they can't really do it by the hour because it would be sort of like an honor system. But when you're going in and recording for something, it's by the hour. Oh, so if you... And usually they have a 2-hour minimum for project. So you'll get paid for the 2 hours no matter what. But, like, say you go in and you only have an hour's worth of work for one character, and then they want to give you another character that's going to take an hour to record. So you take 2 hours, you get paid the 2 hours, which is the minimum anyway. But say you're doing one character that is taking 2 hours, and they have another character that's going to take an hour. Then obviously you get paid for the 3 hours because it's by the time. So it depends how much each of them has.
Okay. That makes more sense. I never knew how that part of the world worked in that regard. So I know that you've been kind of a part of a lot of personal projects as well, and fan projects and the like. And that sort of, like, has put you kind of in the role of a director at times, correct?
Yeah, sort of. It's I haven't gotten to direct very much, like barely at all, but I would love to do it at some point.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna, that's really why I was leading with that question, is if like that's something that you kind of wanted to do. Get on the, like, you know, the control room and play around with faders and tell people what to do.
So many people want to do that. It's like, you know,
it's a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like
but everyone wants to do it.
I like the audio engineering side, which is where which is where I specialize. So getting to do that stuff is fun. So like when you're because I have to imagine that, like, you know, you still do personal projects as well.
I'm actually in a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure manga read through thingy.
Oh, really? I did not know that. Did not know that. Holy
so
crap.
That's just obviously like a fun, no pay sort of project that I do, but I really I love JoJo, so.
Yeah. So like, how do you find yourself balancing like personal projects with professional work and not like burning out or anything?
Sometimes I do burn out, but a lot of times I just kind of have to choose what I take on in terms of online projects, you know, because obviously like any of my work has to take priority. Mm-hmm. So if someone wants me to do a project, even if they are offering some sort of payment, but it's like a really like a lot of lines or something, I have to look and see if I can actually do that. It also, I mean, I have a lot of people who are like, oh, can you just do this for me for free? But like, unless they're a personal friend or it's a project that I'm super personally invested in, I'm just kind of like, well, I'm never going to get to it in that case. Because that's the other thing too, that I have to tell people, like, if they want, you know, obviously they have to pay me something, and my rates are a lot cheaper for independent projects and stuff. Because I mean, if you're like making a game in your basement, you're not going to have the budget that a big developer does or whatever. Right. I'm like, hey, I can give you like the super affordable rate and stuff, but you'll have to be like a little bit more flexible with me on the turnaround times, because I feel like it's easy for everyone to be like, we want this the same day or we want this the next day. And, you know, again, if this is like some industry project where they're paying me full rate, then yeah, I will bend over backwards to make that happen. But, you know, for like a YouTube project, whatever, I'm like, hey, can I get it to you within the week? Is that, you know, because there's certain times where you're like, you have to like be reasonable about this if you want it. I mean, if it's, you know, if it's a special circumstance and somebody's like, oh, I need this for my friend's birthday tomorrow, can you do it? But, you know, I feel like the rest of the time everyone's like, yeah, I want this like today, but, you know, that's just not always how it works with the time commitments people have.
Yeah. And full disclosure, I'm paying her $20,000 for this interview. That was her rate. I couldn't believe it, but I was just like, well, you know, you're dealing with famous people.
Man, if I made $20,000, I would go makeup shopping again.
Just go be on every crappy podcast in the world per interview. $20,000. There you go.
And I'd buy love gems for all my mobile games that I'm addicted to.
Oh my lord, you and your yeah, I've got a friend that's really into that Love Live School Idol Festival.
Yep, I play that, and I play let's see, Idolmaster a little bit. I played the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure mobile game. And then I recently downloaded Fire Emblem Heroes because
you're in it.
It's one of the new characters they just released. So
that's really cool. That is really cool, and that's not a terrible game. It turns out, I was not expecting it to be actually kind of decent. That's pretty good. And again, you were in it, so it's even better. Oh Lord. Okay, so like. Well, while we're still kind of like on the topic of roles, like what's a dream role for you? What's a role where it's just like, I need to be that character? Or does this
Jillian
change?
Cujo from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
I kind of thought. And like, are there any roles that you got and weren't quite sure about, but then you ended up just loving the crap out of?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easy to feel that way if I'm playing a role that I haven't played that character type a lot before, because I just feel like out of my element when I start to record, like, I don't know what to do. But then it's like, you kind of have to remind yourself, like, okay, like, they cast me for a reason. They like something I did. I mean, like, I was very, very surprised when I got Umi in Love Live because, normally I'd think of myself as maybe more like a Honoka or a Nico or a Nozomi. Like, definitely Umi is like the total opposite from the character types I usually play. So I was really, really nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pull this off? Like, what if people hate it? And it's like, I had a lot of fun with the character and I really, really adore her. But it can be hard when you're like feeling nervous. And then, of course, because the series had such a big fan base for the Japanese version, people just dumped all over the English version.
Oh, of course.
Out, and they said like horrible things about us, about me in particular. And
wow, I'm gonna go get my tire iron and visit some people.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I feel like it's all about, I'm never about like censoring people from having an opinion or not taking constructive criticism. But the thing is that a lot of people are not constructive and they make it personal. Like, I don't have an issue with somebody going, hey, yeah, I appreciate what you did. I personally prefer the Japanese version. I'm like, cool, no problem. There's stuff that I prefer to watch or play in Japanese, whatever. But it's when they start like
personally attacking
about
you
me as a person, even though they never met me, and saying that like I don't deserve this role and I like ruined their favorite character. Like, I mean, I feel like people don't really talk about the negative side of doing this kind of stuff, but it is hard. I mean, I got used to a lot of hate from back when I was on Newgrounds.
Yeah,
but it's still like...
unfortunately witnessed a lot of that, and it's absolutely terrible. The way people can be over just the dumbest things. It's like, have your opinion, dog, but don't be shitty to people because
yeah, and half the time it's like, oh, like, it's about, my weight or something like that. Something totally unrelated, and they'll just, like, pick that and make fun of it. It's like, it's one of those things where it's like, people are always like, well, it comes with the territory, you have to deal with it, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I don't feel like it's something you ever fully get used to. Like, I feel part of being human
exactly.
is that on some level, things are going to affect you. It's why, like, I couldn't really be, like, a YouTuber, for example, like one of those big YouTubers who do all this stuff on camera, because they make crazy amounts of money, which would be awesome. But I'm like, I couldn't, there's a lot of girls I follow who do, like, makeup tutorials and all the kind of stuff that I would want to do. But it's like, I look at, like, just the crap that they get. And they obviously get a lot of good stuff, but it's like when you have people just dissecting every part of your life and what you say and how you look, like, that's...
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would go crazy.
Like, as a trans person, I can definitely relate to you. Believe me. Holy crap. Is the internet just a cesspool?
And that can be difficult because, you have people who... I guess they try to be, like, edgy, for lack of a better word, and they think that, I've had friends where people have called them out by, like, their dead names that they obviously no longer use and stuff like that, just to, like, try to get under their skin. And I'm like, that's so crappy. Like, how would you feel if somebody did that to you?
Yeah, it's just absolutely awful. The people, the things that, and it all goes back to, I just don't like dubbed anime.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's cool. That's fine. There's a sub option for a reason.
Exactly.
There's dual audio in a lot of games. And even if you want to say, like, I wasn't a fan of this, I think the dubs need to be stepped up, that's fine too, but don't be like, these actors are ruining it, these actors deserve to lose their jobs, let's harass them. That's the stuff that I have issues for.
Yeah. Like I said, I got a tire iron for people like that. I'm a little unkind, or a little intolerant as it comes to internet hostility these days.
Well, because there comes a point where you just get tired of dealing with it. You get, and I know people are like, oh, internet bullying's not real, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, the thing is, I mean, how is it that much different if I guess on the internet people can be anonymous and this and that. But it's like, if somebody came up to me and said something really bad to my face, I'd be like, I'd probably curse them out, but be like, hey, at least they had the guts to say it to me face to face in person, right? But it's like when they do it online or this or that. It's like
how much of a
it's
coward?
being cowardly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they also, it's like saying things behind your back, and I don't know.
Yeah, people. Who needs them, right? So we were talking earlier, and you were talking about the various kind of roles that you've played and roles that kind of surprise you here and there. And like a particular role of yours that surprised the crap out of me, mostly because I didn't know it was you at all at first, was Hiyoko Saionji in Danganronpa 2.
Yeah.
She's a very nasty little...
I didn't realize that was me, because that's the kind of characters I usually play.
Wow, she's a foul-mouthed little girl. Wow, was that any stretch at all for you, or?
Those are the kind of characters that I play the most and feel like the most at home playing, I guess. That's partly why I was so surprised with something like Umi, because,
I did not even know that was you the first time I played it, and then a friend pointed it out, and I was like, that's not a role that I had heard you in before, because I had heard you in a lot of things that were kind of I don't know, I guess like the virtuous main character of something, things like that, where,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
So kind of like my Fire Emblem characters.
Yeah, things like that, where it's just kind of very heroic, or, something in that range, so when I heard, Hiyoko, and then, that character, and the very terrible things she has to say sometimes, I was like, that's her? Nuh-uh, you're lying.
And then I have my Zestiria character, who can be I guess kind of nasty, but more just sarcastic, less overtly nasty like Saionji, and more just oh, you're kind of dumb, or whatever.
Kind of a little haughty in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also, I really like Ethel in Fairy Fencer F. Another good...
Yeah, she was fun.
Fun little role there where you get to say one line over and over, apparently.
She's got a little bit more she says later.
She does, yeah. She opens up, but I really like the initial interactions with that character. So, how did you get involved with 35 and counting and, in front of camera work?
Oh, I don't do on-camera work. I'm, very... I mean... I do it's weird. I do cosplay and stuff. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if I were ever doing something in character, if someone wanted to make a really low budget live action JoJo fan movie or something, I would totally dress up as Jolene and do that. But overall, it's the, I don't know, just the idea of doing on-camera stuff is no. I don't feel one, I'm very not comfortable with my looks, and I mean, I like taking selfies and stuff, but it's always when I can do my makeup perfectly and angle it perfectly, and, all that kind of stuff. But it's on camera, I feel people can see all the not so nice angles, so I feel it takes a really confident person to be able to do that. And the other thing too is I just don't really know how to it sounds weird, but I don't really know how to physically act. Vocally acting comes really easy to me, I guess, because I've studied it for so long and practiced it so much. But when it comes to how to physically emote and stuff, I'm what do I do? So I don't feel I could do that my roommate does on camera and stuff, but it's not it's not really something that I think I would be good at doing or would want to do or feel comfortable doing. But I admire people who can. I mean, and then on the flip side, I've heard on camera actors say stuff well, I don't know how people act with just their voice, when you don't have your facial expressions and physicality.
Yeah, having recorded a little bit of ADR, I've actually seen some live action actors kind of I don't get this at all. What am I doing here? So it's obviously kind of weird coming from both sides, where neither side kind of gets what the other one does from
yeah, I guess whatever you studied and whatever you feel comfortable with. Although David Bowie could just do everything ever. I'm just reminded of how good he was. I saw a theatrical screening again of Man Who Fell to Earth. And,
good stuff.
Yeah, he looked very, very good. And
very, very handsome.
He always looked good. But,
Didn't he, though? Didn't he, though? no matter what, no matter what. So kind of like, I was kind of wind down a little bit here. I kind of want to talk a little bit about up and coming voice actors and actresses, and like kind of the importance of a real good demo reel. Like because I've had a few people come into where I work and do voiceover demo reels, and they all kind of like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting to be an anime voiceover specialist, but it kind of seems like that's the only thing they want to do. And I kind of think, like, do you think that diversity in a demo reel and proving that you can do something like, okay, you've got your big, boomy, very showy anime voices they're always great in context, but, like, do you think that it's also important to have something like, look, I can do commercials, and I could probably read your audiobook really good, things like that? Like,
absolutely. Now, if you're talking about, like, commercial and audiobook stuff, those need to be on a separate demo.
Yes.
Because your character demo needs to be one thing, and then if you want to have, like, a demo for your commercial reads, and then, like, maybe a narration demo if that's what you do. I personally have 3 demos. I have my commercial demo, my, like, character voice demo, and then video game voice demo. But usually when you're just starting out, you can do one character demo that encompasses, like, cartoons, video games, like that sort of stuff. And you know, I used to be like one of those people who was like, oh, I became inspired because of anime, I want to do anime and stuff. But the thing is, a lot of the trends for anime dubs and stuff like that, maybe those are still used in that sort of media. But in terms of things like, especially video games, I mean, in JRPGs, you do kind of see that over-the-top acting style a lot, and I've done a lot of JRPGs, but a lot of times, you know, they want to keep it pretty close to how it was originally recorded in Japanese and stuff. But for, like, more, maybe, like, Western-style video games, or, you know, any kind of, like, CGI sort of thing, something more realistic, they want it to sound more human, I guess, like more like real people talking. And that's the big trend that you're seeing. It's the same thing for commercials, you know, because they realize that people hear that coming soon on sale, they're just going to turn off the radio because they find that obnoxious. So instead you have this everything where they're like, we want it to sound natural, like a real person, not an announcer, not over the top. So you know, you always hear these guys going, hey, I'm just the guy next door telling you to buy chicken nuggets or whatever the deal is. It's like very, I mean, the dilemma I have is trying to do more like underplayed, realistic sounding acting without it sounding like boring or like I'm just talking. And that's something that's hard for me because, you know, I tend to like emote a lot in this and that, but it's like doing that without going like big and over the top is like the biggest challenge that I'm still working on. Because I mean, most of what I do, like most of what I work on and get to audition for is anime and JRPGs. So I had that style kind of like beat into me or whatever. And then, you know, on the rare occasion I'm auditioning for, say, some kind of game that's not like that, obviously that's not the kind of reads that they want. They want it to sound more realistic, especially if it's a setting like, I don't know, like a zombie apocalypse. And not that like zombies are realistic, but you know what I mean? It's like a survival setting where they're like, oh, you know, stuff's going down, we gotta get out of here. It's definitely going to be more like real and in the moment sounding and down to earth and not like this kind of thing.
Yep, definitely need some diversity. Like, just go rip off her demo reel. The way she's got her set up, you'll be good. Like, it's really good. You got 3 separate reels there. Probably a good idea to follow that format. I bet it'll do people a lot of good.
Well, I say, you know, if you're getting a demo reel produced professionally, have somebody direct you on it who knows the industry. So, like, for my character reels, for example, I had them directed by people who were voice coaches and who worked in those mediums, so they understood like what casting directors would be looking for and stuff. If you're doing your own for the purposes of like, say you want to do online projects, then you don't need to spend like thousands of dollars getting a reel done at that point. I mean, maybe, yeah, if you wanted to rent out studio space like you were saying you dealt with, but it's like, if you're if you're not like submitting to agencies or studios or places where you have to have a professionally produced reel, you can make one yourself in the meantime. And I put a guide, like a pretty extensive guide, up on the VAC, and it's stickied, and it tells you like, here's the kind of stuff that you should put on it, just ideas. Because one of the biggest mistakes I see aspiring people make with their demo reels, and I mean, I've been guilty of it too. We all have when we were first starting out, but it's something that is just like immediately, I feel like, marks it as an amateur, is when people, they don't really have fleshed out characters. They're just kind of doing it as, look at all the voices I can do.
Oh.
And so they're just going from one pitch to another pitch, or one like stereotype of a character to an old, for example, like on guys' demo reels, you'll often like hear them try to do like an old man, and it's obviously very like, if it's like a 20-year-old and they're like, yes, well, back in my day, and like, you're not gonna get cast as this. Like, put something more realistic, or something that you can do well. Or you'll see it too with like the really like stereotypically bad accents and stuff like that, and they'll just choose some like, some stereotypical line. I'm like, if you're doing a Russian accent, please do not use the word vodka. That is so overdone.
The Boris and Nastasha dilemma.
Yeah. So, kind of like stuff like that. Like, you have to like think about them as characters and not just different voices, and you have to like know what the scene is, because I see a lot of times, especially when people mix their own reel too, like they'll randomly put, say, this echo on one of the lines, and I'm like, well, where are you that it's echoey? And if you are in this cave or whatever, shouldn't you be calling out more like, who are you talking to? Where are, like, you have to create the scene, not just with the music and sound effects, but with, your voice, your delivery.
Yeah, you were telling just like micro stories in a way, and you need those to actually all matter and have a context so that a director can hear that. And that's again, fantastic advice. Listen, people, she knows what she's talking about. So we were talking about home setups a bit earlier and how they're kind of easier to kind of fall into these days. I primarily work with big, expensive studio equipment, and it's probably not super affordable for the newbies. So I tend to like recommend people go with like a Blue Yeti mic, because I've found that that's pretty solid. Do you have any mic setups or mixer setups that you think are good for somebody looking to do work from home and it might not be on a professional level yet?
Well, I mean, I just upgraded my setup because I do some professional stuff from home and this and that, and I got like a preamp and stuff now, finally, after all this time. But yeah, I definitely like a USB condenser, like, it doesn't have to be a Blue Yeti, but something of that sort of variety, like condenser style, because then it's like, I don't know, you don't have to deal with like getting preamps and all that kind of stuff, like it's all contained. Sorry. I got choked on my coffee. It's all contained, like it's good for travel. I mean, obviously, like, it's not going to sound as good as if you like use like a preamp and an XLR setup, but when you're like doing online, like, it doesn't matter. I recorded on USB for like 10 years, no joke. So
yeah, there's still like really good stuff out there in that market. What
you don't want to use, because I see a lot of people doing this too, is they buy like a gaming headset and they use that, and like, please don't use because it's going to sound tinny. And then if you have lines where you need to shout or yell or get loud at all, like,
that thing's going to blow out.
That just does not work for that. Yeah.
Yeah, one of my fellow podcast hosts used a Rock Band mic for like 397,000 episodes, and I wanted to wring his neck.
Yep.
That's not good stuff. So So we're going to take it, like, I think we've had a lot of fun things to talk about this interview, so I'd kind of like to go to a place that's maybe not so fun, because it involves, like, the livelihood of people doing your line of work being kind of underappreciated and very unfairly. people who don't know what the SAG-AFTRA strike currently going on is, I was wondering if you could give those out there who maybe don't know what's actually going on here a rundown of what that is and kind of why it's really important.
Okay. I mean, I feel like as far as the basics go, or some of the details about it, there are a lot of resources out there that you can look up, like if you just Google SAG-AFTRA strike and stuff. Because I mean, if I try to like explain everything, it's going to take forever.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It basically, like, the big thing is what are essentially residuals, because for union like TV shows, movies, commercials, and stuff like that, the actors get like secondary payments.
Yeah.
Essentially, is another term that I heard. This is not a thing for like non-union projects, so like most anime and games and stuff, you'll never get residuals. Like, that's just not a thing. But people are saying, well, you know, if we say we record like a union TV commercial, or we do like a part in a movie, we get residuals for it. And games are like a huge up and coming form of media. Like, it's a really big deal. So why aren't games included on that? And, you know, it can be argued, I guess, well, a lot of games just don't have the budget, but the way that they're proposing it is that it kicks in after a certain number of copies are sold. Mm-hmm. So that way, like, little games from small publishers wouldn't be hit by having to pay residuals. But they're talking about like the Grand Theft Autos and the BioShocks and the Overwatch, like that sort of thing that just sells tons and tons of copies, mm-hmm. but the voice actors never get paid beyond that initial session. There's some controversy over it, obviously, because then other people who work on the games, like the artists and the developers, are like, well, we don't get paid extra. So, you know, and we're working on this game for like hours and hours and hours of our life, mm-hmm. sort of thing. So there's a lot of back and forth about that. There are a couple other things they were asking for, like if they were doing motion capture. I mean, I've never done motion capture, but I know some people on like really major Western games and stuff, they will do both the voiceover and the motion capture for their character.
Yeah,
and they're saying that they want stunt coordinators if they're doing that, and also to limit sessions where you're basically just screaming the whole time.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of people, that one I fully agree with, because I saw somebody go, well, I work in a call center and I'm using my voice for 8 hours a day, so I don't see why these lazy, entitled voice actors think that they can get their session limited to 2 hours. And it's like, one, you try screaming, emotional screaming for that, and you see how long it takes your voice to give out. Two, chances are they have other things they're recording on that day. So
exactly, like, this is your livelihood. Like, this is, you know, like a big part, like, people that do this professionally are able to make a full-time career out of it. Like, that's their livelihood. Like, people,
yeah,
like,
and if you lose your voice, like if you're doing you know, some kind of screaming session or this or that, and you lose your voice, then you might not work for the next couple of days. And if you have things scheduled, then you're screwed. So
yeah, I remember that being a case with the Excel Saga dub. The original actress actually just blew her freaking voice out and could not voice the rest of the series or anything for like 3 or 4 months because of it. Like, that's just incredible. That like, can't we at least have a look at that? That's pretty important.
Yeah. So, I mean, the other thing that I've seen too that people are going on about is there's this kind of like misconception that a lot of voice actors are super rich and famous despite barely having to work. And they're looking at like the top maybe 5% of people, because you see these voice actors who get on some long running like big series or this or that, and they're making bank, but that's not the majority of people. Like, so many jobs are non-union now, for example, that a lot of people just are like, they have to take that, or they have to take a low-paying job because they just have to work, and that's the only way to do it. There are, you know, the other thing, too, is people hear about, like, the hourly rates for working on a project, and they're like, oh, but that's a really good hourly rate. I mean, I make so
oh God,
this many dollars an hour or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but you're working 30 to 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we don't, like, I'll have a week go by where I don't have anything booked. And then I'll have weeks go by where it's like, I do have a lot booked, but it's stuff at a lower rate. Or even then it's like, you know, it's never like a full day. Like a lot of times it's a 2-hour session or a 4-hour session. And there may, like, even in a good week, there'll be like a few of those in a week. So it's like, yeah, the hourly rates sound really good, but then what about all the times where you're just trying to find work? And I saw this one guy tweet at one of my, like another voice actress that I work with sometimes, and he was telling her like, well, if your problem is that you're only working like once every few weeks, then maybe you should just work more. And I'm like, but everybody wants to work more. Like, don't you? Yeah. The field is really, really competitive. It's not like people are just sitting on their butts being like, oh, well, I just want to make a ton of money and not do anything. I mean, sure, like, that would be nice or whatever, but it's like,
want that?
The majority of people are like constantly, you know, we're auditioning for things, even if it's not something that we're super excited about, or it's something that we know no one's like going to watch, or like, you know, or maybe it's not like the pay rate they want. Like, whenever I see interviews with other voice actors and stuff, people always ask stuff like, well, were there any roles that you just like weren't interested in, so you didn't want to do? And it's like, they're usually like, no, because I want money.
Exactly.
Like, I want to eat.
You gotta keep those lights on. I've got a real pretty voice, but it's not going to keep the electric bill away.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that people don't realize, too, is that the majority of the stuff that you're doing is not necessarily prestigious or, you know, like, because, you know, it's like for every, like, Fire Emblem Heroes or something, then there's, you know, random mobile game that's only going to be released in China, but they want to put an English version just to have the option in the app or whatever. You know, it's not... Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that, and that kind of stuff is the majority of what you're doing. And every once in a while, it's like, yeah, something like Fire Emblem will come through, or something like Zestiria or Danganronpa, you know. But it's like a lot of things that you're doing are just, and it sucks because I've had some shows or games that I love doing, and I was so proud of my performance. It just had a blast, but like no one knows they exist.
Oof.
So
the worst feel.
Yeah, like one of my favorite performances that I've ever done was a game called Paladins, and I played a character named Evie. But it's like, I don't know a single person who plays that game.
I've never heard of it.
Yep, see, case in point. So it's kind of like, you can have these things where you're like, man, like this character would be so loved if, you know, if she were in like some bigger game or whatever, but that just didn't happen.
Ouch. That is really unfortunate. So, firstly, want to thank you again for coming on my dumb, insignificant podcast and taken time out of your... we fully acknowledge our podcast is real stupid. It's okay. But I really appreciate you giving us your time. Like, I always like hearing people's stories, and like I said, putting that kind of energy out there that's inspiring, and like, you know, like I said, you have an immense dedication to your craft, and I find that admirable, and I would rather somebody hear a story like that, you know, than contribute to any of the toxicity that the world has to offer especially at the moment. If our listeners want to keep up with you and your various exploits, how can they do so?
Yeah, you can. I think the place that I'm most active on is Twitter, so just go ahead and follow me. My username is spelled RINACHAN, or you can just like look at my name and you can find me that way. And I tweet mostly pictures of my cats, so...
That's good content.
Yeah.
Cats are always quality content, no matter what.
And I do have a Facebook page you can follow as well, but I mostly just post, like, if something I'm in comes out or whatever, I'll post it there. But, I mean, if you just want to see, like, my daily whatever, then I guess Twitter is probably the best place.
And you've also got KiraBuckland.com, that's personal website, and, of course, the voice
I need to update that at some point.
And the Voice Acting Club, of course. You know, obviously you need to go there and get your personal projects taken care of, and again, thanks very much for appearing, and I hope you have yourself a fine evening.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for interviewing me, of all people.